What's going down, everybody? Welcome back to another MileHigh TV interview. Gang. Shout out to Eric back there on the boards and whatnot. Shout out to you. Hey, yes, gang. But today, man, we got a special guest. He's actually a friend of mine. His name is Gage H.I.G.H, right? Yeah, I got it. And some of y'all are probably like, who's Gage? Well, Gage is actually a general store manager of KrystaLeaves dispensary out in Commerce City. How you doing today, man?
I can't complain. Days just barely didn't start it, so
Facts, you know what I'm saying?
A little cold.
Yeah, but I say that the snow is kind of a deterrent. I would have rather stay at the house. You know what I'm saying? Because I hate being in the snow.
So, for true. That's I'm from Texas, so being from that, I just don't like the cold.
See.
I moved here not for the weather.
I was just about to ask why would you come here? Ultimately, like now that you say that, like that is like if you don't like the snow, what drew you to Colorado? Because I mean, other than the cannabis, which we'll get to, was there anything else? Because the snow is a very significant part of Colorado.
Yeah, no, unfortunately not. It was really just the cannabis.
Word.
The mountains are pretty.
Hold on. I like how he said that. The mountains are pretty.
Yeah. It's nothing special. You can see mountains in any state, honestly.
Almost, for sure. Well, all right, man. We'll get into this. You already answered the question as far as where you're from. So what did you do in Texas? Because I know, as some of y'all probably looking and noticing that he's actually a fairly young dude. So you just graduated college actually not too long ago, actually, right? So what did you do up to the point of actually getting to Colorado, which then we'll get into that. But what was it like in Texas before you got here?
Yeah, man. It's funny. In Texas, I really just kind of kept to myself. I was more of a quiet kid. Throughout high school, I really wasn't like the popular kid or anybody. Everybody knew me just because I was tall. But other than that, I really didn't have anything else that kind of stuck out. I went off to college not really knowing what I wanted to do, but I took up my computer science degree just because that was easy, Mm-hmm. And then 2 weeks before graduation, someone told me that the cannabis industry was a poppin' industry, and I had only been smoking at that point for like 2 years, and it just kind of took off from there. I had an internship lined up in Seattle, and I just kind of turned it down.
Oh, turned it down.
Yeah, I turned it. I mean, I already said I was going to move there and everything, and then
but in reality, though, even if you went to Seattle, like their industry's popping too, and you could very easily got involved there too.
For sure.
But before we get into that, so you said I was going to ask you about your cannabis consumption in Texas, and whether you did or didn't do it there.
Sure.
So how did you get introduced to cannabis? Like what got you involved and interested?
Yeah, man. I was a junior in college, and I was living with 3 other guys, and one of them actually he was smoking basically since I've known him since I went to college. Yeah,
he was like
on the regular.
On a regular.
Exactly. And what was funny is I didn't have any problem with it. I wasn't for it. I wasn't against it. It just wasn't my thing. I was more of a drinker. And then one night I was coming home from Houston, which is where I lived, and I went up to Dallas to where I was staying, and I got T-boned like 2 minutes away from my house.
Dang.
And I was just so angry that I'd made the 4-hour drive and I didn't have any trouble, and I was 2 minutes from my house and some lady T-bones me. And the only thing that helped me, like calm down was marijuana. And it helped me calm down, helped me chill. And then the next day I asked him, I was like, "Hey man, do you mind if I just like sit in and take a couple of hits?" And he didn't care. And then ever since then, it's just been every single day. I mean, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, I'm about to say. So your story was real simple, and I feel like kind of like most people's. You know what I'm saying? Like some of us have some really crazy, elaborate stories about how we got introduced. Like mine was very similar, though. The only thing is I was a little bit younger.
Sure.
A lot of bit younger.
Sure.
I lived in a neighborhood where, excuse me, there was just a lot of kids who were older than me.
Yeah.
But we all played around, and it was at the time where all the kids were outside. You know what I'm saying? Like it was. PlayStations were just popping off.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And not everybody had them. So I grew up where we played outside. We played football, tag, whatever, hide and go seek or whatever.
Sure.
But I remember one particular time there was 2 of the older kids who stole some weed and some cigarettes actually from their mom.
Big time.
And we ended up finding our way underneath one of the stairwells at the apartment complex, and all huddled around, One cigarette lights up, the little joint lights up, and they start getting passed around. I remember hitting the cigarette one time, be like, "That's disgusting. Yeah. Never again."
Yep.
And I hit the little joint or whatever. And I remember saying that it was gross because there wasn't enough weed in it. It was a lot more paper than weed.
Sure.
but there was just enough weed for my, my little self that it was like, something's to this. You know what I'm saying?
And you were probably in the same boat, whereas like, you just kind of got whatever you got.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't,
for sure.
it
for
wasn't,
sure.
you weren't being specific.
Yeah, I didn't even know what weed was until you had brought it. I knew what cigarettes were. That was very accepted at that point.
Oh,
and
yeah.
People, like, I remember people smoking cigarettes in the cars, like the kids and the windows rolled up and shit. And you know what I mean? Being able to go into a restaurant and you had to pick non-smoking or smoking. Like, these are things that most people are probably going to be watching this like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Unless you're older.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And you'll be like, oh, I remember those times. Like, it's been so long. But yeah, man, that's crazy. Like, the story is just real simple. I like it.
Yeah, man, and
it's relatable.
And I think the best part is, like you said, I grew up with a cul-de-sac full of kids where every single year, and I was the oldest, and then 1 year, and then 1 year, and 1 year, 1 year were down, and with that, I think they've seen that I haven't become some sort of degenerate. I've actually become more of like a I've become more, right?
The fact is. One thing that I've realized, which I'm sure you have over this course of time, is that the stigma that, you grew up with thinking about, cannabis in the world and society is very just kind of like counterproductive, especially when you start to really get into the industry and the types of people you interact with are lawyers and judges and cops and, politicians.
Doctors.
And, you know what I'm saying? Like all these people in these really high respected positions that you're like, you do it too? Yeah. Oh, bro, then why are people looking at me like, what? It's just your job title, but we do the same thing when we go home. Like, all right.
Exactly, man.
But man,
it's all about that image.
Big facts. Did you ever get caught with it when you were in Texas?
No.
I know, especially back then. I mean, they're still one of the worst industries now, and they've only just recently decriminalized. So, like,
not even the whole state.
I know. Well, yeah,
just certain
parts.
cities. Yeah, just certain cities are decriminalized.
Parts.
They actually have a medical program at the moment, but it's the hardest medical to get into in the entire nation.
Yeah, it's terrible.
We
were actually talking about this on our morning show the other day, and there's like what 3 million? No, it was 30 million people in Texas. 30 million roughly, just under,
right.
And there's per every 10,000 people, there's one medical patient per 10,000 people,
so
which like in return it's
30,000 people.
No, it's only 3,000 like 188 or some shit.
Dude.
Like people in total that have a medical card in Texas.
Sad,
it's like the most lacking state.
Yeah.
When you look at the industry.
And then when you start to look into it, you can't even smoke bud. You can only take
tinctures and shit like that.
Yeah, not even edibles. Tinctures have their place. There's nothing wrong with them, but who are you helping at this point? You can't even let the people get what they need, right?
Yeah, big facts. And I mean, there's conversations because the industry, the people who are in the industry there, like the people who have the licenses, the few that are actually out there.
Sure. Whoever you are.
Yeah, they can't push, obviously, but they're definitely trying to, encourage the state to expand on its program so that it makes it easier for people to get it. And it allows for them to make money. Like the estimation for the amount of money that they're expected to make for 2021 is non-applicable. There's not enough money to even worry about. It's not even putting an estimation out there. It's like, meh. They're not going to make enough to make a difference.
Yeah. And this was something that I looked into probably like a year and a half ago because we'll get to it later, but the medical industry in Texas is just not where it needs to be and where it should be, right? And it's just sad at this point, right? Because unfortunately, that's not their biggest money revenue, and so Texas probably isn't going to put any money into it until eventually recreational becomes legalized. So,
yep.
And unfortunately, Texas is probably going to be like the last state too.
They really like when people say my state's going to be the last.
Nah,
Texas really might be the last. Like
100%.
Dead ass. They really might because they've put more effort into the hemp game in the hemp industry than they have in like the actual cannabis industry. Period. Like 100%. There's not even like a debate or like a comparison actually.
Yeah, and I went to school for business, and so we looked all the time at what would have happened if they did legalize, let's say 2010, 2015, and then did numbers from then. It's astounding the money that Texas can make just in taxes, just by the amount of people, and then throw cannabis into that. And they're not even willing to.
They would be a powerhouse just like California.
Oh yeah,
we are.
Oh yeah,
like New York would soon be if they can get their shit together too, which they're trying as well. But no doubt. So back to my original question though, did you ever get in trouble with cannabis or for cannabis before you left?
Luckily not. Luckily I didn't get any trouble.
Lucky.
Yeah,
You're lucky because Texas, you wouldn't have been leaving, honestly. That's, I
true.
mean, I knew the answer, but
True.
I just thought of that.
Well, and the thing is, you know, I come from an area kind of like Austin that's a little bit more free thinking, a little bit less conservative. Right. So I come from Austin and Denton, Texas. You know, shout out y'all. Y'all are more forward thinking than the rest. So yeah, I mean, even, you know, not unfortunately, everybody around there had weed, so it really wasn't that big of a deal that you smelled in class and everybody else kind of smelled too. So
okay, so you kind of got lucky then. You
exactly. Yeah.
You kind of, and especially the time that you kind of joined in and finally caught the wave.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you were definitely. You know, you're an adult and at a point of like you said, being around enough other adults who were doing it that it was kind of like the teachers were probably doing it. I'm sure. You know, I'm not insinuating nothing, but I'm just saying.
Oh yeah. And I joined a fraternity too, and we were kind of the outcast fraternity, so it was more of like the stoners and the weirdos and kind of stuff.
Y'all was like, we'll band together.
That's exactly right. Like, that's exactly right. No one else wanted us. We'll make our own group.
That's dope. All right, so you come to Colorado, like as you said in the beginning. Cannabis is the only reason that brought you, which brought a lot of people here ultimately. Yeah. And I remember talking to you. You kind of came after that initial huge wave, and when the market for like housing went crazy, and the jobs were not really there. Yeah. You kind of came after it settled down, and enough people kind of like found their way either back home or found their way into other industries and kind of left the cannabis industry alone. And so you kind of came in at like a good point, if I say, where you kind of missed a lot of the BS.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. So.
Yeah, like there's a lot of BS that happened that was first like 5 years after like the initial medical legalization, and then even like that year or two after the recreational, it even like vamped back up again, and you know things were kind of crazy. So you kind of came in after it settled down, and it, like I said, enough people either went home or found other industries to occupy their time and their pockets. So how was it when you actually got here? Do you remember like what it was like when you actually stepped ground in Colorado and was like, all right, I'm here? Like, did you have a job already? Did you just come with hopes and faith and dreams and shit? Like, how did that look?
Yeah. So like I said earlier, I had actual plans to move out to Seattle and start working somewhere out there. I had an internship with some company, and I already forgot their name. And it wasn't important. Yeah, it wasn't something that really interests me too much. I just knew it was a paycheck at the end of the day. And then the same buddy that had told me that I could move out to the Colorado and work in the cannabis industry, he also told me that he was going to get me a job at a dispensary. So I was like, cool, easy. I'll move out there. I'll get all my licensing done. I'll get my badging. I'll get my Colorado license, and then I'll hit you up and see where we're at for that job. And I kept in contact with him the entire time, just trying to see what was going on. And I moved out here. I got my licensing. I got my badging. And I hit him up, and I never heard back.
That's
never once.
I was about to say that story I've heard multiple times.
Yeah.
Because everyone, when they get into the industry, they love it. Yeah. There's like this like amazement, because I remember even for myself, like seeing a bunch of weed on the table, and it's like, you want me to trim these pounds? Yeah. And you're gonna pay me for it? Like, what? All right, you know what I'm saying?
You're gonna let me touch this really amazing weed.
So like your whole like idea for like what this place is really skewed, because you're so caught up in like the weed aspect of it that you kind of don't really look at the business part of it and like all the other stuff that actually goes around with actually getting this product to shelf and growing it. That I think people get really excited and want to tell their friends like, hey, this is the best place to come work. You gotta come work here. You gotta come work here. And they can make all these promises because they've talked about you and they've, whatever. Yep. But then the reality is they may not be there anymore.
That's exactly right.
And that's probably what happened, right? Is he probably ended up leaving before you even got here and got your badged and everything, or got fired, whatever the case may have been. But he probably wasn't there anymore to even pull those strings.
And the problem was it was a friend of a friend. So it wasn't even really the guy that was going to get me a job, right? And that was that's really where I think I made the biggest mistake. But with all that happening, I wasn't even in the industry yet when all that had happened. So it was still, I didn't even know what the job entailed. I was still just kind of hoping that somebody was going to hire me. Right. I didn't even have my foot in the door.
So at this point, did you even have any like real cannabis knowledge at all?
No, not really. I'll
Just
be
as much as just being a consumer.
exactly, and being a Texas consumer, where really sativa,
He's like,
sativa
I
and
didn't really know
indica,
shit.
yeah, exactly. Sativa and indica really didn't matter. I got whatever I got.
Okay, so yeah, and I feel that because I mean, all of us had to start at that point.
Exactly.
You know,
yeah.
sometime. But so how did you ultimately kind of overcome, this situation where you were, thought you had a job or at least an opportunity that may be there to not having one at all to, what did you do at this point? Like,
I really just had to pull up my bootstraps and just kind of get to work. I started Ubering for 3 months just to pay the bills. I was living out in Loveland, so I lived about an hour away.
Okay.
And it really wasn't too bad. I just kind of did what you had to do. I lived super cheap. I lived with 3 other people, and $500 rent. Yeah, you made it work. And then once I got my badge, I started applying. That was the worst part, was applying for places, because I think I applied for like 2 months. Nobody was hiring. So I got really discouraged, just like, did I make the right move? Because I had things lined up, and then I just kind of dropped it to move out here and see what's going on. And, it was kind of scary in the first couple months. And, I have family that would support me, but I didn't want to rely on them. I wanted to be self-reliant. So
facts. We all want to, especially when we're adults.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? You got to grow up, people.
Exactly.
Grow up.
Yeah. And I was a fresh adult. I just graduated college, and so I wanted to do it myself.
To prove yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I feel that.
And, I had told my family that I moved out here to work in the cannabis industry, and so they weren't the biggest advocates.
They were already hating.
Exactly.
So you had to prove something.
I had to prove something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So how did ultimately, because I know you ended up, KrystaLeaves is your one and only dispensary you've worked for. So how did that opportunity end up coming about? Because I know you're one of the longest standing employees since they've opened.
Yeah, absolutely. I applied. They were, like I said, I was applying for 2 months, and I think they were, if I remember correctly, somewhere in like my 50th or 60th application, something like that.
Oh, did you hear that? That was dedication. He said 50 or 60.
Yeah.
Bruh.
Yeah, you just got to keep going. That's all I kept telling myself was, I wanted
dedication.
I wanted to do this. That's what I kept saying, is I wanted to be here, and I wanted to prove myself. So, I kept applying, and they were actually the only place to get back to me, the only one. And I had no idea that they were brand new. I had no idea. I was just, all right, cool. You were the only one that even asked me for an interview. Not even, we don't want you. You're not the right fit. I didn't get interviewed. They were the only people.
Damn, that's tough, bro. Like, because I've had a very like opposite kind of situation in the industry. Like, I don't even really think I've ever even put in an application for real.
Sure.
Like, I mean, I have, but it was like I had already had the job.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I feel that. Yeah.
I've been really fortunate because, like, for instance, the interview that we dropped today, there was a person we did, Krista Jones. And she's actually the one that helped me get into the industry and get badged and all that stuff. So, like, that was a friend situation there. And then I ended up using that opportunity and just maximizing and getting on to Good Chemistry. And then from leaving Good Chemistry, one of the people that actually got fired the same day as me, ironically enough, ended up at this dispensary called Cross Genetics.
Okay.
And he ended up getting me on over there, because he knew what I was able to do, and like was like, bro, like they're not doing what they need to. Like, you can come over here and do some shit. So I went over there. So again, another friend connection. And then when I went to Kind Love, that was, again, I want to say the same person that got me on at Cross Genetics went over to Kind Love, and I followed like shortly after. Like, so nice. I've had really good success as far as like networking and building and being able to get into situations based on that. So yeah, you that was dedication, bro. Like, that was inspiration. 50, 60 fucking applications. Like, yeah, bruh. That's real life.
Yeah, when you put yourself to a goal, you really either achieve it or you don't, right?
Facts.
And so you got to either do it or you don't. And then you know those people, they say a lot of stuff, but they're not doing anything.
Yep, that's real.
You got to do it.
That's real. So, okay, so you get into the interview, you obviously get the job.
Yep.
What do you come in as, to begin with? Are you just a bud tender, or do you come in immediately with, having a degree in business? Do you get management?
Nah.
Priority?
So when I first started up, I was their receptionist, is what they were looking for. So when we first opened, it was the general manager, 2 assistant managers for each end of the week, and then 1 bud tender and myself, the receptionist,
Okay.
and that's it. So we had 5 people on the staff for probably about 6 or 7 months. We had about 5 people, just because we weren't a very big crew. And so with that, you know, it wasn't terrible. You know, it was just busy all the time because, thank you, brother. It was just busy all the time because we didn't have anybody to like back us up. You know, it was just us to do everything. The store wasn't that busy just because we had just opened up and nobody even knew who we were.
And the location is weird as fuck.
It's whack.
It is it is probably one of the hardest locations to get into for the first time.
Yeah, definitely for the first time.
If you don't know the area, especially.
Yeah. No, and that is the thing, is it's a very industrial area, so there's a lot of just offshoots and random alleyways and train tracks.
Service roads and shit,
Yeah,
which you guys actually sit on as a service road.
Yeah, we do.
With some other like just random businesses and like a random ass hotel or motel.
Motel,
It is definitely not a hotel.
It's not classy.
At all. Okay, so you start off as a receptionist.
Yeah.
And then do you get the promotion to like a bud tender, or what is kind of how does that the progression kinda happen?
Yeah. So the only other bud tender that we had on staff, she actually got fired within like 3 or 4 weeks. So within 3 or 4 weeks, I was already a bud tender. Not really having any knowledge, but just kind of
learning them.
Yeah, learning as I went, and you know, luckily I had some pretty good teachers. Just kind of
ask questions.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I'm not afraid to be wrong or ask a question. So you know, I'm willing to ask, and I'm not willing to, you know, pause a customer to go ask. It's not the end of the world, you know. So, you know, with that, I was willing to put in the time and effort that I feel like a lot of people just aren't willing to put into.
Facts.
And from there, I went from bud tender to inventory manager. So I was bud tender within the first month, and then I became the inventory manager like within 8 months after that. And then I became the assistant manager to the general manager like 4 months after that. And then like 6 months went by and the general manager
left.
Yeah, he left, and I picked up.
Yeah,
and,
which I remember that whole process.
Yeah, that was a process.
Yeah, I remember that actually, because I was actually friends with the old general manager of KrystaLeaves, because he was actually someone who worked for me at KrystaLeaves. So that's actually how I even figured out about KrystaLeaves. And even the reason why I came and checked it out was because of him.
Yeah.
Because he had told me about the flower and was like, yo, bro, this is up your alley.
100%.
He's like, this is really, like, this is you. And I was like, all right, man, you know, whatever. Like, I was really faithful to Kind Love. You know,
Sure.
I had, you know, not only worked there, but shopped there for years prior to working for them. And even after. Yeah, and the weed is really good there, too.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing that enticed me to even try out KrystaLeaves and check out the Cuban crew was the location as far as retrospect to me at my house.
Sure.
It was closer.
Yeah.
So I was like, word. Like, you're telling me I can go get some gas and like some genetics that I'm not used to smoking and it's closer to me?
Why not?
All right, I'm gonna check this out. And I did, and I was and you know, like I've been going there ever since then, actually. Like that's my go-to spot. I work with you guys all the time. So yeah, I mean, it's been a beautiful relationship.
Yeah, man. I really didn't realize how lucky I was until probably like a year into it, when we actually started growing our own weed, and we saw the quality, or at least I saw the quality of where we were. I really didn't realize how lucky I was that was the only people that got back to me.
Yeah,
like,
for
holy.
sure. And before we even get into that though, so back to like the getting to be a general manager, because like I said, I remember that whole process. What was it like to be as young as you are? Because you're only 23, I believe.
Yeah, 23.
So to be 23 and to know that you are the man in charge of an entire dispensary, staff and all, product and all, how much pressure was that on you?
I'm not gonna lie, the first 2 weeks were pretty stressful. I was really worried. You know, I don't want to say this was a dream, but this is definitely something I had thought about. You know, just getting into the industry was, you know, I can work my way up and see where I can go. And you know, we had done classes in college about, you know, what it was like to run a store, and not a dispensary, but more of like a retail store.
Right. Which is essentially what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, you do all those projects, you do all those classes, and it really doesn't prepare you for what the real life is like.
Nope.
Because it is not real life.
Nope.
Like,
because those classes never factor in the real life situation.
Nah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Is it could tell you and prepare you for all the numbers in the world.
100%.
But until you start to factor in human error and human emotion and all that nonsense, the rest of that shit means nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get in the real world, you're like, what the fuck? They didn't teach me about this.
Yeah, no, and that was probably the biggest struggle. And, you know, not to bring up 2020, but we had just one of probably the most influential
Terrible
years. Yeah.
You know what? And terrible and good years for dispensaries, though.
Yeah, it depends on who's talking.
Because the one thing that 2020 did do for the cannabis industry was it brought a lot of positive attention to it.
Absolutely.
You know, people spoke their minds about cannabis. It became an essential thing, essentially, that people were like, no, I need it.
Yeah.
And it even surpassed the sales and usage of like cocaine and stuff like that. So people's habits are, you know, even changing, which obviously would benefit the industry and the amount of money that you guys are making.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, you guys just having such a weird location, and I think 2020 was only year 2 essentially for you guys.
That's exactly
so
right.
you were still in that process of still trying to foothold
make a name for ourselves.
Yeah, in the industry, which you still managed to do in this time, which now leads me to my next question of how do you think you guys were able to, in such a short period of time, like grab the reputation that you have? Because CrystaLeaves got named one of the best dispensaries in the state for 2020 by Westward. And then Cuban Crew actually got named best flower of the state for 2020.
Oh yeah, they did.
So, and that's pretty much the only flower you guys carry besides some other little third parties that are, you know, around you guys.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I mean, 98% of the flower is Cuban Crew, house grown stuff. Like, how did y'all do it? Like, what do you think was the factor that made that happen?
Yeah. You know, I think it was a lot of things. Our first year, we kind of made a name for ourselves, and with that, we were trying to really just try and get the Cuban Crew name out there, right? They hadn't been growing for very long, and so with that, we had to run some pretty amazing deals just to get our name out.
Yeah.
And you know, we're selling to different dispensaries. Unfortunately, I can't remember all of their names, but one of the biggest ones that I can is out in Boulder called Eclipse.
Yep, Eclipse. Shout out to Eclipse.
Yeah,
Boulder.
shout out to Eclipse. You know, they carry the Cuban Crew flower, and so with that, just getting our name out there was probably one of the biggest things that we did, because like you said, our location is so rough to get to.
Yeah.
But once you know where it's at, it's not that bad. You know, we have return customers every single week. So
yeah, big facts. Like I said, and that's why I said it was the first time. It's just the first time. Like, once you know where it's at the first time, like you got it
100%.
But because it's such a hassle getting there the first time, you will never forget how to get there after that.
For sure.
Like, it's the most complicated process that first time. You're like, where the fuck is this place?
You know, I think another reason of what really made us do well in year 2, and this was during 2020, was, you know, we kept our consistency up. You know, things didn't change during the pandemic.
That's true.
Yeah, unfortunately, we heard a lot of other dispensaries, their quality just went down, or what they were physically giving customers just weren't what they were showing, right? We never changed from day one. You know, we kept our health standards up. We deli style no matter what, but with that, we made sure that we at all times are being as safe as possible for our customers.
Facts. I'd agree.
So with that, you know, keeping a high standard of just operations is a huge thing that I feel like a lot of other dispensaries have dropped down on. And, you know, it's nobody's fault. This is a weird year for everybody. So, you know, you kind of have to go with the punches. And I'm not going to lie, it was weird for me in the first 2 months where everything's changing. You know, you wake up one day and one rule's this way, and you wake up the next day and the rule's a different thing.
Facts. This is definitely one of the most changing industries right now. I mean, just because it's still in its infancy when you really look at it. Yeah. Regardless of how long Colorado has been, you know, legalized, the entire industry as a whole is still a baby. And you know, there's still a lot of trial and error. I feel like that's kind of happening, and you know, you got to change and rewrite rules and close loopholes and gray area, which there's a lot of, and was a lot of.
Yeah, and you know, when you're trying to set store policy and make sure your employees are safe and make sure everybody feels comfortable, and then they're changing rules on a daily basis, things can get a little bit stressful. So,
Facts.
You know, I think just one thing that really helped us improve and grow this year was just keeping our consistency. You know, nothing really changed. We have an amazing staff at CrystaLeaves that just really nails it, I believe. So we're doing what we can, and
For sure.
And I think our name's definitely only going to get bigger from here.
I agree.
I'm really glad that we won this year in both Cuban Crew and KrystaLeaves, but we're gonna keep winning.
Big facts. And the
on
one that's coming up next too is Habana Extracts
exactly.
too. That's the in-house extraction. And we're gonna try to get Adam up here too, the head extractor as well. And we'll talk further into that and their processes and his story and whatnot. But yeah, this is another one too that we gotta get the award for, because they've been making a big name.
Absolutely. And the premium rosins that are being pumped out right now are just fantastic. They're so terpy, and the high is just so
beautiful
smooth.
shit to take pictures of. Yeah, I gotta just say.
Honestly, when the flower is this good, it's only perfection you're coming out with.
Facts. So it seems like you've coped pretty well with this whole transition. I remember I don't think I was quite 23. I think I was 24, 25 when I started getting into like my general manager positions and stuff. But at that point I had already been kind of thrown into like smaller management situations. So I kind of had, again, an easier transitional period into like the bigger, more important managerial roles. Whereas, you didn't. But it seems like you've kind of made a smooth transition over this last year, because it's been almost a year now since you've
it was February, so it's almost a year. What I would say is in college I worked for a ma and pa pool store. They manage their own pool chemicals.
So you still had some management experience.
So I had that management experience, and I also had the aspect that like I only worked with 12 other people. I didn't have 300 people that I had to remember, or a huge team to keep track of. I had a pretty close-knit team. So with that, I transitioned over, and it felt exactly the same. I just moved over to cannabis, not the end of the world.
For sure. And the one thing too, I'll notice, it was when you did take over, you didn't have to worry about too much pushback from like an older demographic either, which I remember I did. I had, there was definitely a pushback when I had started taking over, because there were people who were older than me that felt like they should have got the position or whatever. So there was definitely kind of like a little power struggle where I kind of had to like, assert dominance to show like I could do this job, and that just because I was younger didn't mean that I, wasn't just as qualified, if not more qualified, And I know you didn't really have to deal with that too much, because there were older people, I feel like, I know there were people who were older than you in the situation. But I feel like the only pushback that you would have and, should have received was from the other manager who had went for the position as well.
Sure.
Which, she had been a manager. So I understand that pushback.
I get it. I understand. Yeah, you're fine. I think that's the only real pushback I've gotten. I'm the youngest employee there by 8 years.
Right.
And I'm, the general manager. To me, it doesn't really matter. We have employees ranging all the way up to 49 years old, and I'm 23. I can hold a conversation as equally as well with a customer. Right. It really doesn't matter. And so with that, I think ultimately it comes down to, work ethic and just drive. Yeah.
I think drive is a big factor.
Exactly. And like I've been saying from the beginning, I put my bootstraps on and I get it done.
Yeah, for sure, man. So, well, congratulations to that.
Thank you, man.
So back to the Texas thing, because like we were talking earlier, Texas is medical industry is terrible. It's absolutely trash. But let's just say theoretically they get their shit together. Would you go home if the industry kind of opened up and allowed for opportunity?
If it was just medical, I probably wouldn't. Just because I think Texas wouldn't really be as receptive to a medical market as they probably should be. And so even if they did start to create some sort of regulations for that, I don't think it's going to be super great, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so, I'll probably wait until it's recreational, just so that way the capitalist market can take over and just start going. I just have full faith that I know Texas is willing to do it. Last time they polled, I'm pretty sure it was in like the high 60s that people want legal weed. But it's all about, for whatever reason, the tax money, and they're not willing to do it. So when that day comes, I'm purely just going to try and capitalize on as much as I can.
For sure.
I just don't think the medical side is really where you can capitalize the most.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it would be if you want to help pioneer the industry. You know what I'm saying? If you want to be part of the lawmaking process, the regulation making process at this point, and you had the money to burn to do that and survive.
Definitely, yeah.
In the atmosphere that it is.
For sure. And at the moment, I don't. You know.
Yeah, for sure.
If I was in a position, you know, I might be a person that would be willing to do that. But at the moment, you know, I'm trying to make a name for myself, you know, so I'm trying to pioneer for myself, not for the whole industry, like, you know, because that can be a little bit of a daunting task.
Yeah, that's a lot to do. So if it does go recreational, that's when you would go home.
Yeah,
and you would try. Would you try to open up a store at that point, or do you think you would just try to go work for someone else and just try to get in where you fit in?
You know, I'm already in talks with some concentrate companies that are trying to license in other states. So, you know, there's always opportunities for what's happening. I'm not opposed to opening up my own store or running somebody's store. Not the end of the world. It's not necessarily when I end up or where I want to end up. You know, I want to get into the concentrate game, not me extracting, just kind of owning a company of some sorts. But you know, I'm not opposed. I'm 23. I still got years. Yeah.
He's like, I got plenty of time. So, but from here, man, what's the plans moving forward for you, bro?
Yeah, man. You know, I just moved into this new house, so I'm really excited.
Yeah, congratulations too, man.
Thank you, man.
You don't hear that often. 23 and bought a new house. I feel like that needs some claps, bro. Oh, Eric's walking away. Oh, there it is. Came back.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you know, it's something that I've been thinking of. So you know, from here, I'm a single guy, so I'm trying to get out there, but dating's kind of hard right now.
There you go, ladies. Look, he's a general manager, bought his own house, but if you try to hit him up for his money, he's gonna see through your shit. I'm just saying.
You know, it's anything's open at this point. You know, work's going pretty well. We're about to keep expanding with more employees, so you know, hopefully I don't have to keep doing as much, or I don't have to work 6 days a week sometimes. But, you know, at the end of the day, I like what I'm doing, so I really can't complain. Going forward, I'm just trying to stay healthy, be happy. You know, I'm about to pick up jiu-jitsu, so I'm super happy about that.
There you go. He's trying to be able to whoop y'all's ass.
Yeah, I'm trying to stay active.
That's what's up, man. So if someone wanted to get a hold of you for a job, or if it's a company that wants to get a hold of you for, you know, product placement or whatever, how would they get a hold of you, man?
Yeah, feel free to shoot me an email at Gage, that's Gage, at KrystaLeaves, KrystaLeaves.com.
And he said that real slow for y'all too.
Oh yeah, so I do that all the time.
Just rewind it. We got to put the little, you know what I'm saying? The little shack. Have the ball pop up with all those.
Yeah, man. I mean, I do that all the time for customers, just as or not for customers, for vendors, just because they, you know, there's only one L in KrystaLeaves, not two. That's usually what gets people. And then my name's Gage, Gage. And that's as easy as that. Shoot me an email. Come into the store. We're pretty slow, so you know, I'm pretty easily able to be talked to most times. But yeah, other than that, you know, that's pretty much the only way to contact me at the moment.
Right, okay. And then is there any big like expansions or anything that are coming soon as far as like KrystaLeaves, maybe new store or something like that, anything?
You know, I can't really say too much, but we have been in talks. This was back in March this year that they wanted to open up a store.
Right before the COVID
before the COVID, but they wanted to open up a store in 2021. So, you know, who knows what's still happening. You know, we had a really good year last year, so who knows? It's always up in the air. Like I said, I can't say too much, but it's always up in the air.
For sure. Nice. Well, I appreciate you, man. And yeah, it was definitely a good interview. Yeah. I feel like we got to know exactly kind of who you are. There's definitely a lot more to kind of write in your story because you're still so young.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to have you back on. We'll have you bullshit. Maybe have you come do the morning show with us one of these times.
Absolutely.
And maybe talk about the industry and talk some shit or whatever.
Oh, man, I love to talk shit. I'd love to be on.
Yeah, I'm about to say we'll have to work that one out. It's early, though, so you have to be down for some early shit.
I'll be here.
All right. But you got any last statements, anything you want to say? Let's shout out your social medias.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to follow me on Instagram, I'm Gage Havekos, GageHavek. KOST. Just follow me up, and then you can follow up our social medias at Cuban Crew, at KrystaLeaves Dispensary, and what's our third one? Havana Extracts.
Yep.
And then last thing, just keep dabbing, man.
Yeah, I like to say, because this is what he likes to do.
Yeah, I like to dab. So Havana Extracts is really what I'm repping at the moment. And I just took, I think, 2 dabs on the podcast of, sorry, I don't want to get it wrong, Gelato Cage number 19 rosin batter. So definitely go pick some of that up, man.
Yeah, big facts. And get you a Puffco Peak. This is that new one. So if you go follow him, this is the type of content that you're gonna get from him. Is straight dab content. So if that's your thing, he's your guy right here. You know, help build his following. You never know. He's got some stuff, because this is what he does.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But I appreciate you coming in, man. You have a good rest of the day. And we'll catch you guys later. Always stay high. Honest, intelligent, genuine, humble. Peace.